I'm Pam. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I'm a person living with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm a badass because I'm a survivor. I was going to cover a different topic in this video, but I'm recording this video during the week when we lost both designer Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain. While I'm a fan of both of them, I have a particular fondness for Anthony Bourdain. I've read his books, I've watched his show, behind his sometimes harsh exterior, there was real humanity there. And his loss is just incredibly sad to me. He had so much, I think, left to give. So I'm talking about this topic of suicide because it's very relevant to survivors of childhood sexual abuse and people living with post-traumatic stress disorder. I looked up some statistics online and can only say that they're as accurate as the sources that I got them from, but 90% of people who were sexually assaulted as children develop post-traumatic stress disorder. 90%. I also read that in statistics, perhaps as high as 25% of people with severe post-traumatic stress disorder die from suicide. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder because you were seriously abused as a child or sexually assaulted as a child, and quite frankly, from any cause, you're at a highly increased risk of suicide. And it's important to know that because PTSD is a life-threatening condition. And when you have a life-threatening condition, you need to be able to watch out for the greatest risk, know that it's there, and know what to do. I've shared a bit about my story, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experiences with feeling suicidal. The first time that I felt I had a lot of thoughts of suicide was when I was trying to serve as the caretaker for the family member who sexually abused me as a child. I was in denial, and I think that's what enabled me to do as much as I was trying to do. During that period, I became very hopeless. I was drinking a lot to cope. Obviously, it didn't help a whole lot. And I started to develop thoughts of suicide because I was hopeless, and I saw that, living seemed a whole lot more frightening than dying. And I did develop a plan. And in fact, one night I laid in bed contemplating whether or not to put it into action. And I didn't do it because I have 2 children, and I couldn't do that to them. And I have a husband who I love very much, and he lost his parents when he was young, and I realized that doing that to him would devastate him, and I simply could not do that. I had to find another solution. Ultimately, I did. And things got a whole lot better. And then about 2.5 years ago, my post-traumatic stress disorder just exploded. And it was at that point that I was starting to deal with what I came to understand was the truth about my childhood and what happened to me in my childhood. And there are a lot of aspects of post-traumatic stress disorder that can make a person feel suicidal. Post-traumatic stress disorder is very closely linked to severe anxiety and also depression. And I had both of them. Both were severe. My PTS was severe. And I had just these compulsions to commit suicide. It was very strange, just these intrusive thoughts. And I went to a psychiatrist. It was actually very difficult to get an appointment with a psychiatrist. And I think that this is a real issue in the United States, and one that we must address right away, because people with a life-threatening illness, and to me that is what post-traumatic stress disorder is, need to be able to access help right away. I probably should have gone to the emergency room, but I ended up finding a psychiatrist, paying out of my own pocket. And I think that what's important to know is that when you are at that low point, that's serious stuff. And you know, you have a good life ahead. I have a good life ahead. Things got better. From those low points, things got better. And I found a purpose, and part of that purpose brings me here today talking to you about my experience to hopefully help other people who are in recovery, to help them advance in their recovery. And in this video, to say that if suicide is feeling like an option right now, know that there are people out there who love you and need you in their lives. And there are complete strangers like me who care. You know, it will get better. Your brain is telling you one thing, but you know, it's something that you need to fight, and you need to you know, take whatever steps you have to you know, address what you're going through, and move on, and you know, grab life. So I have found that medicine does help me. It actually helped a lot with the intrusive thoughts, but really you need to work and find what works for you. I know that when I start to lapse back into depression and severe anxiety, I need to go back to those things that I know work for me. And so some of those things are getting some regular exercise. And this may sound trivial, but at my lowest point, I got a puppy, and that puppy gave me a reason to get up in the morning. And so I play with my dogs if I'm feeling really bad, or I go outside and I think about my gratitude for nature. And sometimes I really do need to spend some time reflecting on what happened to me. Now, the thing that's hardest to cope with for me is flashbacks of the very worst moments of my abuse. And you know, I know a lot of people also live with those moments. And you know what I've done? I shared with my husband what was happening with me. And I was open. And, you know, he brought to me a stuffed dog that I used in the hardest moments of my recovery. And he just laid next to me on the bed there, and I could see that he also had tears in his eyes. And I realized, you know what? This moment's going to pass. And it did. And so what I want to say is, it's going to pass. and you're going to find ways to cope. And there are, people out there to help you. And there's a purpose that you're going to find that's going to make you want to live out your life in a, rich way. And uh, you're worth it to invest the time to ask for help, to get help. If you're feeling like you might hurt yourself, call a hotline, um, call somebody close and talk to them. Part for me of recovering from PTSD has been to be more open. And it's risky sometimes, but to be more open about how I'm really feeling. And it's hard it's to be open, quite frankly, to myself. But I would love to see the suicide rate for people living with PTSD to go to zero. You have survived so much to get here, to listen to me, and keep going. There is a good life ahead of you. This is just a moment, and know that things are going to get better. And so I hope that this has been helpful to you. If you need help, please call a suicide hotline, go to an emergency room, call a friend. Remember that this is, there have been times in the past where you felt low and you got better. And this is, just going to be the same. So, you just need to hang on until things start to feel a little bit better. I really hope that this is something that is helpful. And I wish you all the best in your recovery and all the best in the good that you're going to bring to this world.